Welcome, I'm Kate, and I'm here to take the fear out of crafting. If you're a beginner who feels intimidated by your Cricut, you've found your coach. My mission is to show you exactly how to get started so you can learn quickly, build your confidence, and discover the total joy of what your machine can do. Let's get started together. In my initial video, I had you do some exploring in Cricut Design Space just to see what ready-made projects were already at your fingertips. But today, I want you to get comfortable with some of the key functions in Design Space that really help you accomplish anything you can imagine just with these simple features. So to start, you're going to click on your blank canvas, and I'm going to get you acquainted with this left toolbar here. Today, we're going to spend a lot of time exploring shapes because those really help build a foundation of all the different things you can do. Here is if you're looking to add an image to your canvas, so this is your canvas, you could type whatever image you're looking for in here. Here would be to add text to your canvas, and then here is to browse different projects, which you can also do from your home screen. So I'm just going to delete that. So looking at our shapes, I don't use shapes too often in designs, but you'll see that we have a whole bunch of shapes at our fingertips, and they really do serve an important purpose. I'm going to click on this square, for example. So maybe I am going to be applying lettering to a board, and I want to, as I'm developing my design, I want to make sure that the design is the right size to fit on the space that I'm using. So here's my square, and you'll see I can just click and drag, but it keeps its shape. And the board I'll be using is a rectangle. So if you want to have the flexibility to give this really specific measurements and also not keep its shape, you'll go up here to size and click this unlock button. And then from here, you can enter in the specific dimensions of whatever it is you're working with. So we'll just say this was 22 inches by 28 inches. Okay, and so we can zoom out to see that really big shape that I just made right there. And since we're getting comfortable with basic functions of the Cricut, you'll see I'm getting an alert up here because the machine isn't big enough to cut something this big. So anytime there's an alert over here, you'll want to pay attention to it. Here you can see it's not supported by Maker. So it's telling me to reduce the size. Most things will default to basic cut, but let's say that I wanted to draw this square. So I would change the function to drawing, and then I could tell it what I'm drawing with. So am I using a fine point pen or a really thick marker? And I want you to see the difference. It kind of shows you what the look will be if you use a thicker marker. The other thing you can do is if I'm using this to create a guide, like I was for my sign that I was going to create, you can also choose the guide option, and that way the Cricut won't try to cut out this shape. It recognizes that you're just merely using it as a tool in the design space to format your project that you're working on. So the next thing I want to show you is how to use shapes to change an image. And so we're going to zoom back in, and you'll see what I have here looks a little bit like a gift tag. So you'll notice if I click on my image, I can resize it here. But if I hover just outside of those squares, I'll get this curvy line. And if I click and hold, that lets me orient the tag in whichever direction I would like. So I want my tag to go side to side versus up and down. I will call out that when items pop up or you select items, they tend to default to black. The color really doesn't matter because when you put your material into the Cricut, that's when you're ultimately deciding what color your material is. However, if you like to change the material colors just so it helps you envision your project a little bit more, or just to help with visibility, like in the next step I'm going to show you, you can definitely do that. So I like to thread ribbon through my tags and then tie them to a package, but you'll see there's nowhere to do that. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick a circle. So I'm going to bring this circle over and size it to the approximate size I want my hole to be in my gift tag. And then I'm going to position that little circle right where I want it for the tag. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag so that it selects both the tag and that circle. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose slice. So now that I've sliced, you'll notice that it cut that circle shape out of the tag, and now that will cut a hole in my tag when I send this to cut. If I changed my mind and I didn't like what I did, I can always undo and it will take me step by step back through what I did. Or you can also move forward. But this is also a good time to show you what the contour feature does, which is right down here. So this allows you to select or deselect parts of an item that you want to omit. So in this case, I was able to get rid of that circle using the contour feature. Now that we learned about slicing images, let's try going over to circles. And so I've got a circle here. So I could go back. I want 3 circles for what I'm about to show you. And I could go back and just click this again, and I'll add another circle. You also have shortcut keys. So I am on a Mac, so I will do Command D for Command Duplicate. And you'll see that'll give me, I can hit it as many times as I want. That will give me as many as I need of a certain item. So now I'm just going to delete what I don't need because, like I said, I only need 3. And we are going to make one circle big, and we're going to make these other circles stay little. And I bet to most of you that looks like a somewhat familiar shape. The problem is wherever you see those, it's going to cut these as 3 separate pieces, which might be okay in some instances. But if you wanted to make this one seamless piece in this shape, you would select all of the items that you want to combine, and then you'll go down here to combine. So it gives you the option to weld and unite, and almost every single time I use unite. Unite and weld do the exact same thing. However, if I later decide I need to undo that, this gives me the option to undo unite. If I weld it, it is permanently welded. And of course I could hit the back button, but where this causes problems is if you close out of Design Space, you save it, there's no way then to undo that weld. So I will always use Unite versus Weld, just so that I always have the option to go back and change that later. So I wanted to show you that feature as well because it can be very useful. So your challenge is to go in and play around with different shapes and the different features of welding, uniting, contours, and just seeing what you can create just from some basic shapes. It doesn't need to be perfect, just go have fun.